secondary sanctions by United States, that would be a nuclear option. We don't want to be a kid carried on the shoulders of United States. For us in Lithuania, seeing this bloody murderer on the red carpet was difficult.
After all the high-level meetings, President Putin, President Trump in Alaska, the European leaders with President Zelensky in the White House, Putin continues to strike Ukraine. So how to respond? EU defense and foreign ministers are meeting here in Copenhagen, and with me is Dovilė Šakalienė, Defense Minister of Lithuania. Minister, what would be the most effective tools to put pressure on Putin?
As we discussed with my colleagues, it's crucial that Ukrainian army is kept strong, because that is the first security guarantee, that is the first line of defense, that is the first and foremost tool if we want to stop Russian aggression, or at least to give a clear message to Putin that Ukraine is not going to be sold and we are not going to back down in helping Ukraine. Secondly, of course, financial pain to Russia. So that means that the next sanctions package has to be more ambitious, and we as Lithuania have always been pressuring for more. Secondary sanctions by United States, that would be a nuclear option that would actually hurt Russian war machine, that would hurt cash flow to Russian war machine significantly, substantially, and of course finding a way to make use of those over 200 billion euros that are on the table of Russian assets, which still are not used for the benefit of Ukraine. Then a couple of more things is that when we talk about our contributions, it would be really wonderful if we could finalize the definition of the United States' role in the coalition of the willing. That would be very helpful. We understand this is a difficult process, and the progress that I've seen in the past few weeks is immense. So we are happy to hear that United States, even though Europe will lead, needs to lead, still are thinking of taking on a serious role.
But what you said shows that there is this strategic dependency on, of the Europeans on the United States. So
that's no news, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's no news to us.
Yeah, so how long will that take?
Do you mean gaining strategic independence from United States military support? Let's not be naive. We do not really have any real alternative to that. And having in mind that United States have been, for the last few decades, axis of current security architecture of the democratic world, I'm not even sure we really have to change that. What we do have is to become stronger ourselves. Our goal is not to replace United States or to find an alternative to the power of United States, but to strengthen our joint armed forces by growing visibly stronger military muscle ourselves. I actually think that Secretary Hexet, when I had a meeting with him in Pentagon just a few weeks ago, was quite right, saying that United States can lead the army, but the army needs to be there. So we are the army that needs to be there. And for some strategic capabilities in the coming decade, Europe is not going to be able to replace them.
Mm-hmm. But this is an uncomfortable position to be so dependent on the United States, on President Trump.
Well, that's the payment for peace dividends. That's the payment for being naive, thinking that the world has changed, because it hasn't. We remember how the world was celebrating nice Mr. Gorbachev when we were actually still confined in the Soviet prison, when we saw blood of our citizens shed when we tried to regain our independence. By the orders of that same nice Mr. Gorbachev, the world has not changed. We just wished it has. So now talking about that dependence, I still think it's a very big difference of sitting on shoulders of someone and being carried, or walking hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder. So we were carried on the back of the United States, well, metaphorically, for quite some time. Now we need to walk next to them. Will they still be the bigger brother? Yes. but we don't want to be a kid carried on the shoulders of the United States. We are strong financially and economically, despite all the challenges that we are facing. We have a will to change. Germany is the best example. I've been talking about Germany as a miracle these past few years. In 10 months, to go to zero energy dependence from Russia, from the position of being #1 client of Russian energy resources, that is a miracle. That is an illustration of strong political will and values and principles.
So, but to be honest, how much leverage Europe really has to bring Putin on the table?
A lot. We have been underestimating ourselves. We have been, I would say, downsizing our capabilities by sometimes being too slow, too careful, too bureaucratic. Putin or Xi Jinping, who are really an efficient gang, they are not playing by the rules of a democratic world. And we are really worried how to make sure that every public procurement really happens very, very carefully according to 2 million rules. Transparency is critical in democracy. Really, we have to ensure that taxpayers' money is spent well and that the spending is justified. But do we really need so much bureaucracy? Do we really need such slow processes? No. Secondly, when we talk about our capacity economically, we admit that military industry in Russia has expanded quite faster than ours. Did we really put all we have in it? Did we make use of civil industry? There are companies who would be willing to transform and produce dual-use components, who would be willing to go into military needs. Are we really welcoming them, or we are still putting a long line of obstacles in front of them and just watching who will pass through? If the, I don't know how you say that in English, elephant will pass through the needle hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but then that's the wrong mindset, you think, in Europe? What has to change?
It is changing. I've been defense minister for, 9 months? Before that, 2 terms, member of National Security and Defense Committee, participating in quite serious formats of discussions. And it was quite lonely for quite some years in the room when we talked that, first, Russia has not changed. Second, we really have to up our defense capabilities. Third, that we have to do it fast. Now, it's majority of us in the room. So this change happened, and Donald Trump helped that a lot. His methods are unorthodox, but efficient. And we in Lithuania, especially when we see what is happening and when we see the collateral damage that is inevitable when we live so close to war zone, we really want this to happen faster. Lithuania only in July had 2 Russian military drones in Lithuanian territory. One of them carried explosives. Therefore, I think we all understand that time is pressing us and that Europe is changing. Today in the room, when we talked with all the ministers, I see that mentally we are on the same page. Financially, there is still a little bit of scattering.
Mm-hmm. So you appreciate Trump's efforts for peace, but can Europe and can you really trust that he will not sell out Ukraine and the West?
I think it's going to depend quite a lot on European conviction, on our, how to say that, on our engagement. If you want to be at the table, you have to be an equal partner. So that means that the sprint that we made in the past few months is a good start, but it is not enough. So therefore, Russia currently sees United States as the only credible deterrent. Europe has to, as I said, grow military muscle, probably, taking some, I don't know, what do you take? Steroids. So we need to be military power on steroids, regretfully.
So we saw President Trump applauding President Putin on the red carpet. Was that the right sign?
I'm not going to comment on certain tactical details. for us in Lithuania, seeing this bloody murderer on the red carpet was difficult. Lithuania has history of 2 occupations by Russia, Russian Empire, then Soviet Russia. I come from the family which knows on their own skin, on our own skin, we know what Russia means. So we are never gonna trust Russia. It doesn't really matter if it's Putin or somebody else. At the same time, nobody has a better alternative, and the game is not over. It's still ongoing. Change of the narrative from Donald Trump regarding support to Ukraine has changed quite consistently to more support to Ukraine, including role of the United States in the coalition of the willing. That is a very significant sign. So
you trust that this will not change again?
I would not talk about trust. I would say that we are watching, we are participating, and we try to do our part. That's all that we can do at this time.
And you are not too worried that the US is too close to Putin?
Well, in my opinion, President Trump has seen very clearly manipulations by Putin, and several comments that he's made indicate that maybe sometimes what he says publicly and what he really understands deeply may be more complicated than it seems from the first sight. Secondly, yes, of course we are concerned. Yes, of course we feel at least a bit anxious about the whole process. But as I said, nobody has suggested a better alternative. Nobody really has a better solution right now. So we try to go with what is happening right now, pushing hard for protection of Ukraine, pushing hard to increase support to Ukraine, and well, upping our contribution too. Lithuania is a small country, and we are sitting on the border of Russia and Belarus, and we will contribute to the Pearl format. We will contribute to acquisition of Patriot systems, which Germany is initiating. So we feel that it's very important for everyone to contribute as much as possible. One thing that Putin does try to do is to dissolve our unity, and that was not such a successful endeavor that he hoped.
So, but how united is the European Union on the secondary sanctions that you also proposed here? Secondary sanctions, that means that the EU wants to punish the countries that help Russia. Is there...
Let's be honest, secondary sanctions by United States is the actual secondary sanctions that actually really produce enough pain for Russian war machine.
Not the European Union.
Well, that would be nice too, but you know, it's a difference of having a really nuclear effect. Nobody in the world wants to feel secondary sanctions of United States on their skin. That would be a game changer.
President Zelensky is calling on quick decisions on security guarantees, but isn't that the second step before the first step? Isn't it necessary to have at least a ceasefire?
I understand the motivation to have everything set up and ready. Because if that miracle, and in my opinion that would be a miracle, of ceasefire would happen, then if everything is set and agreed upon and ready to go, then of course we would have a very fast process. However, we all agree that security guarantee number one is strong Ukrainian army. So therefore, upping our contributions, streamlining support according to Ukrainian needs is basically what is happening right now anyways. So this is security guarantee number one. When we talk about coalition of the willing, Lithuania has assessed our contribution regarding troops, equipment, enablers, and financial costs quite some time ago. If there is a ceasefire, we would go to the parliament to acquire a mandate at once.
So troops on the ground?
Yes, but as I said, parliamentary mandate. We are a democratic state. Me as a minister, of course, I would be happy to initiate that procedure from my side, but of course our president would be the one who would be the main figure in that process. He was always very active in the meetings of Coalition of the Willing, and we would really have to do that very fast if that happens. But madam, that is, in my opinion, one of the biggest illusions. Without pain, Russia is not going to sit at the negotiations table. Why should they?
Many countries see troops on the ground as too risky because they don't want to be involved in the war with Putin. Do you understand that?
Well, I think that it shows also very clearly that my colleagues understand full well that Putin, who has never kept any agreement regarding ceasefire, and we've seen that from 2014, probably wouldn't keep that one too, even if that was agreed upon. And that's why the anxiety about safety of the troops. So therefore, if we all agree that that man is not going to stop, that man is not going to keep the agreements, then probably pressure, harsher sanctions, hopefully secondary sanctions, that is the way to go forward.
But even with the security guarantees, everything depends on President Trump again, because you need him and the US in too.
This is one of the crucial parts, ceasefire and role of United States, when we talk about that specific security guarantee, because as I said, security guarantees is a complex of measures that we are applying and will apply in the future. So first, regeneration of Ukrainian army, strong Ukrainian army. That means trained, that means supported militarily, fully equipped. So number one, strong Ukrainian army. Then sanctions and pressure on Russia. That is a security guarantee. We have to stop feeding that war machine. Then it's Coalition of the Willing. When we talk about Coalition of the Willing, again, it splits into several parts. So boots on the ground is one part, another part is training. And we really need to continue that training. And we are talking about expanding EUMAM, the mission of the European Union to training in Ukrainian territory.
And did the defense ministers agree on that?
We had difficult discussion about that, and this is one of the processes that is ongoing.
So many countries against it?
Since that was a closed discussion, let's not discuss numbers. However, let me say that absolute majority fully understand why this is necessary and are really supportive of the idea that we should respond to Ukrainian needs. And in certain cases, ensuring that training is where it needs to be, as close as possible training. This is something that I think is much closer to conclusion than other difficult decisions.
Thank you for talking to Deutsche Welle. Dovilė Šakalienė, Defense Minister of Lithuania.
Thank you, Madam. Danke schön.